Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. I wasn't supposed to be home early. The traffic on I-70 was light for once, and I figured I'd surprise her. I even picked up her favorite takeout on the way, spicy eggplant and garlic noodles. She hated cooking on Thursdays. I thought maybe we could curl up on the couch and actually talk for once, like we used to. It's funny how the smallest things seem innocent until they're not. I walked in quietly, trying not to startle her. The hallway was dark, lit only by the bluish hue of the kitchen light reflecting off the hardwood. I could hear her voice coming from the living room, soft but sharp in that way she got when she was talking to someone she trusted completely. Probably her sister. Lila never held back around her. I was about to call out when something made me stop. "I don't even like being in the same room with him anymore," she said, with a dry, bitter laugh. "The way he looks at me like I'm some miracle? It makes my skin crawl." I didn't move. My hand froze on the strap of the takeout bag, the plastic crinkling faintly in the silence that followed. "You sound cruel," her sister said. "Isn't that a bit much?" "No," Lila replied. "It's not. I've been faking it for years. Since before we even bought this house. He doesn't get it. He thinks because he does the dishes and brings home dinner that he's this amazing husband. But I never wanted safe. I wanted real." "Then why haven't you left him?" her sister asked. Lila sighed. "Because I'm tired. And he's easy. He doesn't ask for much, and he makes everything convenient. He's like furniture at this point. You don't love the couch, you just use it." That was when I stopped breathing. I stepped back into the shadows of the hallway and leaned against the wall, heart pounding like I'd just run a marathon. The words rolled over me like ice water, soaking into every thread of who I thought I was. Furniture. A convenience. I didn't hear anything else. Or maybe I did, but nothing stuck. I don't remember walking out the door, but I do remember leaving the food on the kitchen counter, unopened. That night, I drove until the highway lines blurred. There was no destination, no plan. Just me and the road, the radio on low, and the dull roar of betrayal buzzing in my skull. I ended up somewhere past midnight in a town I didn't recognize, someplace with a gas station, a closed diner, and a roadside motel with a flickering neon sign that said vacancy in one letter and can't see in another. The guy at the front desk didn't ask questions. He handed me a key, took my card, and slid a bottle of water across the counter. Room 12 smelled like bleach and old carpet. But the bed was clean, and I didn't care about anything else. I sat on the edge for a long time, staring at the ceiling. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Just hollow. Like I had been gutted without anyone even bothering to let me bleed. Everything I'd given her, my loyalty, my trust, my plans for the future, suddenly felt like a delusion I'd manufactured alone. A story I wrote and forced her to play along with. And the worst part? She never had to lie. All she had to do was smile and nod and let me keep believing. I looked at my phone. No missed calls. No texts. Of course not. I dropped it onto the floor, face down. I didn't want to see her name again. Not tonight. Instead, I opened the nightstand drawer, half expecting to find a Bible. What I found instead was a half-used notepad and a ballpoint pen someone must have left behind. There was a phone number scribbled on the top page, probably some hookup gone wrong, but I tore that part off. I stared at the blank lines. Then I started to write. Lila said I make her skin crawl. Lila said I'm furniture. No poetry. No rage. Just facts. Maybe I was easy. Easy to ignore. I kept writing. And somewhere between lines, something inside me cracked open, not shattered, not broken, but opened in a way I hadn't allowed it to in years. By the time I put the pen down, the sky outside had started to lighten. For the first time in years, I didn't know who I was without her. But I was damn sure going to find out. The motel parking lot was nearly empty when I stepped outside that morning. A layer of dew clung to the windshield of my car, untouched, like time had paused while I was inside falling apart. I didn't know where I was going. That was the entire point. My phone was still face down on the motel nightstand. It had buzzed once in the early hours. No doubt it was her. Maybe a test message. Maybe a throwaway apology. I didn't check. I didn't want to see her name lighting up my screen. Not yet. Not until I knew who the hell I was looking at in the mirror again. I got in the car and started driving. No GPS. No maps. Just highways, back roads, and the hollow space in my chest where my life used to be. After a couple hours, the engine started to sputter. A rhythmic cough and a flickering light on the dash warned me I'd either ignored maintenance too long, or maybe the car, like me, just needed a break. I pulled off into a service station on the edge of a small town called Belridge. One of those towns where the gas station sold hot sandwiches and everyone knew your name, or would eventually. I sat in the corner of the shop while an old mechanic named Glenn poked around under the hood. He looked like a man who'd been alive for 3 wars and still had opinions about the first one. Said he could fix it, but he needed to order a part. 2 days, minimum. You staying local? He asked, wiping his hands on a gray towel that used to be white. I shrugged. I am now. He didn't press, just nodded toward the street. There's a diner up that way, and Lorna runs a room out back if you're not picky. Lorna's place wasn't much. Just a one-room cabin with a rusted heater, a creaky bed, and wallpaper that was doing its best to fall off the walls without being obvious about it. She charged me $60 in cash and handed me a key with a crocheted keychain shaped like a fish. You here for the quiet, or running from something? She asked. I hesitated. Little of both. She nodded, like she'd heard that answer 100 times. The next 2 days were a blur of silence, coffee, and scribbled thoughts in the margins of that motel notepad I took with me. I ate breakfast at the diner every morning. Lorna's niece worked there, a woman named Gina with the kind of kind eyes that made you feel like less of a ghost. We didn't talk much at first. I sat in the same booth, drank the same bitter coffee, and stared at the hills outside like they were hiding answers. The place had that old jukebox hum in the background, playing country songs about heartbreak like the damn thing was psychic. I didn't miss her yet. Not Lila. What I missed was the version of myself who believed he was loved. What I missed was thinking I mattered to someone who wasn't just tolerating me. I tried to remember the last time she touched me because she wanted to. The last time her eyes softened when I walked into the room. The last time I didn't feel like an obligation. I couldn't find it. And somehow, that hurt more than the words I'd overheard. On the second night, I was sitting outside the cabin, staring up at a sky too wide for my thoughts. The kind of sky that made you feel small, but not in a bad way. In a right-sized way. Like maybe your problems weren't the center of the universe after all. That's when I heard her voice again. Not in person, just echoing in my memory. He's like furniture. You don't love the couch. You just use it. I gritted my teeth and wrote the line down again. I'd written it 3 times already, like I could carve it out of my skull by putting it on paper. It wasn't the cruelty of it that gutted me. It was how calm she sounded when she said it. Like it had never occurred to her that I might hear it. Or care. Or crumble under it. I was supposed to be her person. Her husband. Her home. Instead, I was the couch. Glenn called the next morning and said the car was ready. He was kind enough not to comment on how I looked, which was like someone who hadn't really slept since Wednesday. You heading home? He asked as he handed me the keys. I paused. No, I said slowly. Not yet. There was nowhere I needed to be anymore. No house I wanted to go back to. It might still have my name on the mortgage, but it wasn't mine. Not really. Lila made it clear it was hers. Always had been. Glenn gestured toward the open road. Then where? I smiled for the first time in days. Not a big one. Just enough to feel my face remember how it worked. Wherever this takes me. I didn't check my phone for 3 days. Not because I was trying to be noble. I just didn't care. Or maybe I was afraid I would care if I looked. But late that night, after my 3rd cup of burnt diner coffee, I opened it. For missed calls. 7 texts. All from Lila. Can we talk? Where are you? You just left. This is insane. You're being dramatic. You don't even know what you heard. At least give me the decency of a response. No apology. No remorse. Just a steady stream of control disguised as concern. It hit me then, how strategic her love had been. It hadn't collapsed overnight. It had rotted slowly under the surface while I stayed busy watering dead roots. That realization was a knife I hadn't seen coming. I didn't respond. I turned the phone off again and slid it into the drawer of the nightstand next to the motel bed. Let her sit in the silence for once. That afternoon, I met a man named Curtis while waiting for my sandwich at the deli down the street. He looked like the type who owned a pair of boots for every season, but only ever wore the ones with holes in the soles. You're not from around here, he said, sipping a Coke like we were old friends already. Just passing through. Running or searching? I gave him a look. What makes you think it's not both? Curtis nodded slowly, like I'd confirmed something he already knew. I ran once, he said. 15 years ago. Thought I could outrun the ache. Turns out, the ache was in me. And now I just let it ride next to me on the bench. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a photo creased at the corners, faded by time. It was of him and a woman on a porch swing, both smiling like it hurt to stop. She left. I asked. He shook his head. No. Cancer did. But her absence taught me more than her presence ever could. Curtis didn't ask for my story. He just patted my shoulder once, took his sandwich, and walked out into the wind. That night, I lay in bed thinking about Curtis. About his bench. About the ache. Was I trying to outrun it too? Or was I just afraid that if I stopped running, I'd have to feel all of it at once? Because under the silence, I was angry. Not the explosive kind of anger. Not rage. Something colder. I had built a life around Lila's comfort. I had worn myself thin trying to be her peace, her shield, her steady ground. And she couldn't even be bothered to tell me the truth. She said she couldn't stand how I looked at her like she was a miracle. But what kind of person hates being seen with wonder? I called her the next morning. I don't know why. Maybe part of me wanted to hear her say it again. Wanted to see if she'd own it, if she'd double down, or backtrack. She picked up on the second ring. Evan, she said, like the sound of my name surprised her. I heard what you said to your sister, I said. You don't have to explain. You were clear. Silence. Then, you took that out of context. No, I replied. You said exactly what you meant. I was just never supposed to hear it. Her breath caught. I waited. You left without a word, she finally said, like a coward. That stopped me. For a second, it actually hurt. Then I smiled, cold and quiet. I left the way furniture gets discarded, I said. No dramatic exit. Just gone. She didn't respond. And maybe for the first time in our entire marriage, she didn't have a retort ready. Good. Because I wasn't calling for a fight. I was calling for the funeral. The funeral of us. Later that day, I got a message from someone unexpected, Lila's friend, Tara. The same one I suspected was on the other end of the call that night. I'm sorry you had to hear that. I told her not to say those things. She's been planning to leave you for months. She just wanted to wait until after her sister's wedding. Didn't want to ruin the mood. Thought you'd be easier to manage if she kept you comfortable until then. My stomach flipped. So it wasn't just carelessness, it was a plan. My feelings were collateral damage. I wasn't even worth honesty. Just management. The last piece of the puzzle clicked into place. It wasn't that I'd failed her. It was that I'd never really mattered to her the way she mattered to me. That truth didn't crush me. It freed me. I walked outside that night and looked up at the sky again. Same stars, same endless dark stitched with points of fire. But I was different now. Not better. Not healed. Just real. And that was enough. I didn't want to go back. But loose ends don't cut themselves clean. And I wasn't going to leave my name hanging on a mortgage or my memory stuffed in a closet she'd eventually fill with someone else's shirts. So I drove back. 3 weeks had passed since the night I walked out. Lila had stopped texting after I didn't respond to the last one. In all caps, you're throwing everything away. No punctuation. No signature. Just rage and entitlement in one digital screen. The house looked the same from the outside. Too perfect. Too manicured. Like nothing human had ever broken inside its walls. I parked out front, took a breath, and walked up to the door I used to unlock without thinking. She opened it before I even knocked, like she'd been watching from the window. Her eyes were glassy. Her hair tied up in a way she used to save for dinner parties. Makeup just a little too careful. You look tired, she said. I've been living, I replied. We stood there for a moment, the weight of history between us. Come in, she said. I didn't move. I'm here for my things. That's all. Her jaw tightened, but she stepped aside. I walked through the threshold and into the echo of a life I no longer belonged to. The house felt smaller. Not physically, just shrunk. Like a stage set after the actors have left and someone turned off the spotlight. My office had been cleaned out. Not boxed, emptied. Like it had never mattered. The closet, too, my shirts stacked in neat piles on the floor, like donations waiting to be judged. You could have asked me before touching my things, I said. I didn't know if you were coming back, she said. I didn't think you'd just vanish. I stared at her. You told someone I make your skin crawl. What exactly did you expect me to do, stick around until you learned to tolerate me again? She didn't answer. She crossed her arms instead, the same posture she always used when cornered. The same armor she wore when she didn't have the truth, only tactics. I gathered my clothes in silence. Packed them into the duffel I'd left in the guest room. It wasn't until I was almost done that I heard her phone buzz on the counter. One message. The name Jared lit up on the screen. She saw me glance. She snatched it quickly, tried to slide it under a magazine, but not before I saw the full preview. Did he finally come back for his crap? Let me know if I should wait upstairs. My throat went dry. Jared, I said slowly. The guy from your sister's wedding? The one you said was like a brother. She said nothing. I almost laughed. Was that the plan? I asked. Wait me out, smile through it, and then once I was gone, bring in the upgrade? You left, she snapped. You abandoned this marriage. No, I said calmly. You did. You just didn't have the courage to finish what you started. She opened her mouth, closed it, then did something I didn't expect. She looked scared. Not because of me, but because, I think, for the first time, she realized her power over me was gone. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was just done. Tara called later that night. She must have seen I was back in town, or maybe guilt just has its own radar. I need to tell you something, she said. You already did. No, she said. You need to know she was planning to pin the split on you. She told her family you'd become distant, that you might be having a breakdown. She wanted them to see you as unstable so she could walk away clean. I closed my eyes. There it was. The twist of the knife I didn't know was still inside me. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Because I saw your face when she said you were just a placeholder, and I couldn't be part of it anymore. I didn't say thank you. I didn't have it in me. Instead, I hung up and stood alone in the parking lot behind a discount motel off the highway, holding a duffel bag of shirts and a heart that felt just a little lighter than before. Later, I sat at a diner outside town. Same kind of booth, same kind of coffee. Gina, the waitress with kind eyes from Belridge, had recommended it to me before I left. She said it had the best pie west of the river. I didn't care much about pie, but I went anyway. As I waited for my food, I pulled out the notepad I'd been carrying with me since that first night on the road. At the top of the next page, I wrote, You don't love the couch. You just use it. Then I drew a line through it. Hard. Final. Below that, I wrote something new. I'm not furniture. I am the floor that held up your whole life. And you never even said thank you. I didn't go back to Belridge. I didn't need to. The road had taken me somewhere else, a small coastal town called Marital Bluff, tucked between two state highways and a shoreline too pretty to advertise. It wasn't a place you moved to with a plan. It was the kind of town you landed in when plans stopped matching. A lighthouse, a bait shop, 3 diners, and a bar with a jukebox that only played vinyl. That's where I ended up. I got a job bartending part-time at the Drift. The owner, Al, didn't care where I was from. He just needed someone who could pour whiskey without spilling it. Said I had the quiet face of a man who'd been through it. I trust guys like you, he muttered. The ones who don't talk too much and don't look like they're running from the law. It was perfect. I rented a small studio over a bookshop. The place smelled like paper and old wood and burned coffee from the cafe downstairs. The ceiling creaked when I walked too hard, and the radiator hissed at night like it was exhaling all my regrets. But it was mine. There were no ghosts in the walls. No echoes of laughter that turned bitter. No memory of a voice that used to love me only when no one else was watching. Just me, the ocean air, and a chair that faced the window. I filled the silence with writing. I kept using that same notepad until the pages frayed. Then I bought a real journal. Not because I thought I was a writer, but because I wanted to leave something behind that belonged to me and only me. I wrote letters I'd never sent. To Lila. To myself. To the man I used to be. One day, I got a text from her. After weeks of silence. Are you happy now? No greeting. No punctuation. Just that cold, brittle line like she had the right to ask me how it turned out. I stared at the screen for a while, then typed back one word. Yes. And I meant it. Not the kind of happy that dances through the door or kisses you goodnight. The kind of happy that comes after ruin. After burning something down and walking through the ash barefoot. The kind of happy that tastes like air and costs nothing. I saw Gina again, months later. She stopped at the Drift during a weekend trip with friends. She didn't recognize me at first, but when she did, her smile said more than words ever could. You look different, she said. Better or worse? She tilted her head, studying me like a puzzle half-solved. Lighter. We talked for a while. Nothing heavy. Just easy conversation that didn't ask for anything in return. She left her number on a napkin before she walked out. I didn't rush to call. I let it sit in my wallet like a maybe I could open later. I wasn't looking for love. I wasn't even sure what I believed in anymore. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid to find out. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear her voice in my head. Not the Lila who smiled at me from across the table on our wedding night. The other one. The one who laughed when she said I was just convenient. But now, when I hear it, it doesn't cut anymore. It echoes once, then fades. Because I built something new, quiet, strong, and mine. I'm not the man she married. I'm not the man who begged to be wanted. I'm not the couch she used to sit on when it was easy. I am the man who stood up and walked out the door, not because I was weak, but because I finally remembered how to stand on my own.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.